Yeah, the royal wedding happened yesterday, but there's other stuff happening too. The Trump campaign used Cambridge Analytica and Facebook to suppress black voter turnout in 2016, something we definitely don't like. Will the same thing happen this year? Georgia's primary is Tuesday, and Stacey Abrams is battling to make history in the dirty South. Does her campaign contain the roadmap or warning signs for black women candidates nationwide? Lauren Underwood and Aurora Jones are two other black women seeking to make electoral history in 2018. What drives them to enter the fray this year? And speaking of frays, Meghan Markle is about to turn the crown into blackish. We review it all on our special royalty segment today. Welcome to The Last Sip. Come sip our tea. Welcome to The Last Sip. It's been a whirlwind of a news week with a lot going on. 2,700 Palestinians were injured and 60 killed during protests against the U.S. and Israel held in Gaza and the West Bank. The U.S. Senate confirmed an acknowledged torturer to be the director of the CIA, but also voted to save net neutrality. Donald Trump referred to immigrants as animals as Melania Trump was laid up in the hospital for kidney surgery, and Meghan Markle's family threatened to turn the royal wedding into an episode of Love and Hip Hop. But the backdrop for events as we continue through primary season continues to be political. That's why we will focus on black women running for office here in the United States and those ascending to stately power in the United Kingdom. Our first sip is with Ben Tarnoff of The Guardian to discuss the use of social media to suppress black voters. We then move on to assess the opportunities and pitfalls of Stacey Abrams' groundbreaking bid for Georgia governor with Jamila King of Mother Jones and Darren Sands of BuzzFeed. After that, we speak with congressional candidate Lauren Underwood and local county judge candidate Aurora Martinez-Jones about why, as first-time African-American women candidates, they're running for office in 2018. And we wrap it up with a discussion on the formal end of the UK's House of Windsor as an all-white institution with Meghan Markle's entry with Sharia Jackson of Essence. On to the first sip. In hearings on Capitol Hill this week, Christopher Wiley, a former employee of Cambridge Analytica, the data firm hired by the Trump campaign in 2016, revealed that the company actively used Facebook users' information to suppress black voter turnout. Talk about leaning in. What exactly happened, and could it happen again? Here to talk to us is Ben Tarnoff, technology thought leader and columnist for The Guardian. Ben, thanks for taking the time to join us and such on short notice. We really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me.
So can you just recap exactly what was Cambridge Analytica doing with Facebook data and why was it such a violation?
Cambridge Analytica harvested more than 80 million Facebook users' data without their knowledge or consent, and then used that information to build models that help them figure out how to target individual voters in order to try to influence their behavior.
Mm-hmm. And they did it through basically those games or those personality tests, right, that people take that you think are innocuous, but it's actually a way to gather information about who you are as a person, your profile, and that data is then used by Facebook to basically sell products. But in this case, it was sold for political purposes to Cambridge Analytica, correct?
Yeah, so Cambridge Analytica acquired all of this information from a Cambridge University researcher who had obtained it through a personality quiz app, where you would download this app, take a personality quiz, but what you didn't know is that it's harvesting all of your information and all the information of all of your friends. So that's how they were able to acquire more than 80 million users' data.
What we learned from Christopher Wiley is that Steve Bannon actively bragged about inside Cambridge Analytica that they were going to use that information to suppress black voters. That is to say, to figure out who black voters were, to develop profiles for them, and then to target them essentially with misinformation as kind of a backdoor way of voter suppression, get you to suppress your own vote by sort of misleading you with information.
Yeah, look, social media, what it lets people do is target users. And we've seen this in elections in this country. We've seen this elections abroad, particularly in the Philippines, that campaigns can use social media to mobilize their supporters and demobilize their opponents.
Now that we know what's happening, is it possible for, is the knowledge of it an inoculation? Will it prevent it from being used this year? Because we know that this year there's a tremendous amount of energy that's being put into mobilizing new communities, mobilizing voters that haven't gone to the polls before. But at the same time, if there's this way to suppress their vote, is that something that you believe can play a role this year, or we are inoculated against it now because we know it's happening?
I think it will definitely play a role. I mean, Facebook has announced some very mild measures around transparency so that political advertising will carry more disclosures about where it's coming from and who paid for it. But the reality is that Facebook, Twitter, social media, the internet forms a part of a broader problem, which is the degree to which all of our media is used for paid political advertising.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to explain this so clearly and for your ongoing writing and thought leadership about how we can respond as a society. I really appreciate the time that you took, and thank you for joining us this evening.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
To find out more about Cambridge Analytica, the use of social media in voter suppression, and what you can do about it, visit our website, www.thelaststep.org, and click on How to Help. We'll be right back. Welcome back. If elected, Stacey Abrams, the Georgia Democratic gubernatorial candidate, whose primary is this Tuesday, would not only become the first African American and the first woman to become chief executive of that state, but also the first black woman governor in the history of the United States. Polls put her ahead of her rival, Stacey Evans, but there are warning signs in this battle of the Staceys for her campaign. And what lessons does it hold for other black women candidates in 2018? Here to talk to me about that is Mother Jones reporter Jamila King, whose profile on the Abrams campaign is in the May-June issue of that magazine, and BuzzFeed's Darren Sands. First questions is, from the outside, she looks really strong. In the latest fundraising report, she's 3-1 ahead of Stacey Evans. In the latest poll that was taken, she's 2-1 over Evans in terms of people who say that they have identified a candidate and will vote. But interestingly, half of the people that were asked don't know who they would vote for, and a high percentage of them haven't even heard of either candidate. So I'm wondering if she's running the type of campaign that she's saying that she's running, that she told both of you that she's running, which is about mobilizing new voters and getting new people into the system, whether or not that's actually happening, or is there some kind of softness in the approach of her campaign?
Well, I think first there is a narrative that's on Stacey Abrams' side. And I think one thing that I think Darren and I have both seen in person is that she's an incredible storyteller, right? So she knows how to tell a story. She knows how to talk about the narrative of her campaign. And the national narrative is that, you know, black women are a force to be reckoned with as not just voters, but now in 2018, as our elected officials.
There is a lot of knowledge about her. People have been watching, you know, on TV, like the ads. There have been a lot of ads on TV. People are, they know who she is, but then there's like this reticence, I think, to sort of, when they ask for the vote, to you know, go the extra mile and say that they're actually going to vote for her. That was like the most frequent thing I saw. She's made it a point to start to begin to talk to voters that typically, in politics, they call them unlikely voters, or people who you know, haven't voted typically in Democratic campaigns. She's been making a point to actually like go full like tilt towards those folks.
Most of the black leadership is behind us. So there is some softness there, and I'm wondering, is that indicative of something in her campaign?
I mean, I think that, you know, because Georgia's a unique place, right? Because there are a lot of black people there, and there just aren't a lot of black people in many parts of this country. And so you see, in a place where there are a lot of black people, not all black people like each other. Not all black people are gonna like fall in line, right? And so I think in some respects, Stacey Abrams does have a track record of being the minority leader in Georgia State House, and she, you know, like any politician, she has enemies.
She's an outsider. She's born in Mississippi.
Yeah.
She went to Spelman, and that's how she got to Atlanta. She you know, she wanted to be the mayor of Atlanta, but you know, she's not from that class of individuals who typically, you know, come up and they're mayor. And the other thing that I think is sort of she's running up against is that she was minority leader. you have to cut some pretty crappy deals just to get a little bit of what you want done on your agenda.
She has a lot of external support. In Albany, Georgia, which is a bastion of South Georgia, it's a black stronghold. It's where she would have to run up big numbers in order to win. It's a place that she's spoken about. She had a rally there where it was her and Tracee Ellis Ross and Rashida Jones and Aisha Hines, like Hollywood royalty. She rolled them out in midday, in the afternoon. It was her, and there were not more than 100 people there that turned out.
I just think there's apprehension in statewide races. A lot of times, like your
Yeah.
average voter, the average person isn't like all the way into politics. It was like
Correct.
Politics is my entire life, and it was it's a reminder that when you knock doors, like people are worried about keeping food on the table, and they're not really like worried about politics all the time. And I don't know if it's indicative of energy around her campaign, but the one thing that they have done well is leverage this like outside power, right? And whether it's celebrities, I think a lot of her money, I don't want to say most of it, but a lot of her money is coming from people from outside of the state. And, Georgia's important. And I think, the country knows that. Kamala Harris knows that. That's why she came. And she has her own ambitions too, right? So, I think she's using it to her advantage.
I've talked to folks in reporting around Stacey Abrams of just fundraising when you're a female politician and when you're a black politician, not even if you are a female black politician. It generally, fundraising gaps have closed in the past like 2 decades, but it generally takes women twice the effort to do that.
Thank you for your reporting and everything that you do in both of your organizations. For more information about Stacey Abrams and her race, visit our website, www.thelaststep.org. We'll be right back. Welcome back. In addition to Stacey Abrams, there's a surge of black women candidates running for office at all levels of government across the United States. Here to talk about their attempts to shatter electoral barriers are Lauren Underwood, who is running to represent Illinois' 14th district, which was traditionally so Republican that it was held by former House Speaker Dennis Hastert. Also with us is Aurora Martinez-Jones, who is running in a local race for judge in the 459th district of Travis County, Texas, which includes Austin. First up is Lauren. Lauren, thank you for joining us. Thanks to you both, actually. But Lauren, as I mentioned, your district is historically a GOP stronghold and borders a city that is racially polarized. What gives you both hope and confidence that you can win this year, that 2018 is the year to make history there?
Well, 2018 is a major year across our country. It's an opportunity for people like me, women, young people, communities of color to step forward and to share our stories and to share our truth and to speak and garner support among our communities for fair and real representation. And so those values have been the cornerstone of my campaign. We launched this campaign after my congressman was dishonest about his intentions to vote for Obamacare repeal. And I knew that I could not stand by and sort of let that happen, let him take away health care from the American people. That's what got me into the race. And I'm grateful to have won the primary and to be able to directly challenge him for the November election.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that voters in your district are more receptive to non-traditional candidates? Are they willing, you think, this year to vote in ways that they haven't done before?
I don't think it has to do about traditional candidates. I think it has to do with the authentic voice. And I think it has to do with the ideas and about people willing to show up. This is a community that has had a congressman in office since 2011 that won't meet with people. He won't have public events. He's not someone who has any type of presence within our 14th district. We are being severely underserved by his representation in Congress.
You could have run for any number of local offices. You're already an associate judge there. What made you focus on running for the judgeship in the 459th district that focuses on sort of family and family law? I was curious as to why you think that's a crucial political issue and a place to be.
Sure. So, as an associate judge, I've had the opportunity to do a lot of work helping children and families, especially those who are in the child protective system here in Texas. And last legislative session, our legislature and governor really pushed hard to look at some reforms because in Texas, we have been under a federal lawsuit since 2015, where the court has found that the state of Texas violates the constitutional rights of children who are in permanent foster care. And so last session, as they were passing some over 400 bills to reform that system, one of the bills that they passed really got me concerned, and that was to privatize the child welfare system here in Texas. I haven't seen any examples where it's worked well, and that got me really concerned. At the same time, during that session, we had this brand new court that was created to address issues and that could help children and families, and that's really what motivated me. Some of those.
And one last question for you both. Lauren, you've won your race for the Democratic nomination, and Aurora, you're currently in a runoff. So, Lauren, what lessons would you offer up to Aurora and any candidate that you've learned in your in the successful jumping of your first hurdle over in order to secure the nomination?
One thing I learned was about fundraising. So there's so much emphasis on raising money. I had no appreciation that it's not just the amount of money, but when that money comes in. And so often as voters and as casual donors, we might start to give the week before the election. That's too late. Your candidate can't win if they're getting all their money 7, 10, 14 days before that election. Early money is critical so that we can do planning and so that we can buy materials, so that we can hire staff and all of those things. I was the candidate that was most realistic in my budgeting in the primary and actually met my budget goal. And I think that it's not all about money, but you can't run a successful under-resourced campaign. And so that's one of the things that I did learn, and certainly applying principles differently in our general election campaign.
And Aurora, is fundraising a challenge for you? Is that one of the things that you're finding as a challenge in your race, or what's challenging in your race for the nomination?
So in my race, before the primary, I did have some challenges in fundraising, but whenever I came out with a good showing, I had over 45% of the votes in the primary. That really helped people feel confident that I could win, and that helped with my fundraising from the primary now to my runoff. My runoff is on Tuesday, and in Texas and in my county as well, the big issue is getting people to the polls. We've had a low turnout historically in Texas for the number of people who are registered to vote and who actually turns out at the polls. So lately it's been just really pushing hard and making sure, especially for a runoff or a primary, to get people to the polls and hoping just to get out the vote. We have our runoff date is May 22nd. That'll be on Tuesday.
Great. Well, thanks to you both for joining us, and thank you for running, because democracy only works through participation. Thank you both for joining us. For more information about Lauren and Aurora, go to our website, www.thelaststep.org. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Saturday, Miss Meghan Markle of Los Angeles married His Royal Highness Prince Henry of Wales in a ceremony held on the grounds of the 1,000-year-old Windsor Castle, thereby entering the oldest royal family in Europe. But there's little that's traditional about this union. Just 50 years ago, the marriage of a royal to someone who was biracial, divorced, and an actress would have brought the British monarchy to its knees. Honestly, though, if Meghan Markle's father's side of the family keeps up the antics, it might just do. Here to talk about everything from the traditional to the ratchet and what it all means, especially for women of color, is Sharia Jackson, senior editor at Essence. Sharia, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Now, we're going to cover everything from the classy to the déclassé, but let's just start with some essential facts of the wedding. And you are a relationship expert and have all sorts of insights, so you will be able to guide us through all of this in a way that will keep us from being too just kind of down in the gutter. So thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
For people who haven't read your article, but they will.
Essence.com,
that's
check it
right.
out.
The first step is that she represents a salute to our mothers.
Yes, I love the first time you actually ever saw Prince Harry and Meghan together was at the Invictus game in Canada, and who was right there next to them. This big moment for them as a couple was her mother, Doria. And her mother is clearly a black woman. Her mother has locks. And even on Meghan's now defunct blog, she talked about how special and how much her mother was an inspiration. And so what I shared in that article was how reflective Meghan is as she enters a global stage. A lot of the things we attribute to her are realities that are very common to the average black woman. The fact how influential our mothers are, and even as adult women. Meghan's in her 30s and still leans so heavily on her mother. And also, Doria herself is such a quintessential black woman, someone who prioritized education. So even though Meghan knew at an early age that she wanted to go into acting, it still was education prioritized in her house. And her mother, Doria, later in life got her master's in social work and now is a yoga teacher. So that ingenuity is definitely something that has sustained us as black women.
You said lead on your squad.
Lean on your squad. I mean, in my book, Boss Bride, The Powerful Woman's Playbook for Love and Success, I talk about the importance of having your love and success squad. Yes, coming out. And so, I mean, literally, Meghan is such an example, right? Because when we watched that first interview with them, and it's like, well, how did you meet Prince Harry, the most eligible bachelor? And she's like, oh, through mutual friends. You talk about someone who has been intentional to cultivate a circle around her, to have someone she knows who's like, you know what, let me introduce you to my friend.
Right.
He's kind of a Prince girl. I'm like, I need to, and I love my friends, but I'm like, I haven't been introduced to a Prince yet.
Me either.
But we know for black women to really thrive and hit those next level of success in our lives, how much our circles matter to us. I mean, even for Essence, the movie Girls Trip was all about celebrating that sisterhood that sustains us.
I gotta level up. A Saudi prince or a British prince would just
listen.
fight stereotypes.
Yes.
Your third point.
And I talked about that a little bit earlier, but we definitely saw those stereotypes that we as black women bump up against, how they tried to clearly early on paint Meghan with a brush that we as black women get, that we are loud, that we are ghetto, that we aren't educated, right? And so that's one of the things that I'm so happy that she is on the global stage, because she disrupts narratives and represents as someone who has a dual degree from Northwestern. Black women in America are the country's most educated demographic.
Leverage our skills was the fourth one.
Yes, and that's what I was talking about, sort of how she really is a global woman. And so it's so fascinating, even though obviously I don't think she knew 5 years she'd be marrying into the monarchy, but how all of her experiences, how she really played full out. And so during her college years, she served in the Department of State in Argentina.
That's
and
right.
really has a global perspective, which I think really lends itself with the work she's done in the UN.
And the last one was write your own rules.
Write your own rules. Absolutely. One of the things I love about her story and what it signals to women around the world is that one bad relationship or one expired relationship or one relationship that did not work out does not end your love story. I love the fact that she's a divorcee. That is a huge message to show I still can be the prize. I can leave a relationship that has expired and still step into my own romance.
Why does this matter? Why is this important? And I think one of the things we've done is establish why it's important. So thank you for taking the time to do that. We will be right back to talk about all of the ratchetness in our specialty segment. You're watching The Last Sip. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our royalty segment on the royal wedding. Y'all like my tiara? It's very secure. It has to be for all the tea we're about to spill. A royal family is still a family. Still here with me to spill all of the royalty is Sharia Jackson of Essence. But I think, Sharia, this calls much more for champagne than it does for tea.
This is
what do you think?
Opportunity, the perfect occasion for some bubbly.
I mean, we really need some bubblies.
Because this family, I love it all.
I mean, it's very ratchet. Now, you and I are both from Atlanta. We just learned that. So we can talk about this in a way that
we thought we were from the capital of ratchet, and now we know Windsor Castle is the capital of ratchet.
I mean, first of all, her father, selling pictures to...
I mean, why?
Him
why? Because we all have a faux candid picture you're not really riding the bike. Then we all pretend to have a friend take a photo. What's the difference?
He's marrying into one of the wealthiest families in the world.
Well, obviously they didn't cut him enough checks.
Why didn't he go to them and be like, if he was smart and be like, you know what? Hey, daughter, this TMZ situation, they're offering to cut me a check. Can y'all help me out with a new down payment?
He was just a part of a bigger scheme for this evil sister Samantha, because she came out and said it was her idea. She set him up because she did not want her dad at the wedding, and she is the culprit here.
As a person who works in media, as a person who knows about PR, particularly on the entertainment side, you can fix a lot of things that you know about in advance.
Well, you mean for the sister or Megan?
No, for Megan. So I don't understand why she didn't go to the palace press secretary and be like, my family is ratchet. They're going to do some whack-ass stuff. She knows her kinfolks. There's a reason why she didn't invite them.
But I would hope that the love you have for family would supersede some of these egotistical plays for attention, but obviously not.
Sadly, this is all the time that we have on this week's edition of The Last Sip, but we're going to stay sipping our champagne, but we will have a special edition of The Last Sip in honor of Memorial Day, so be sure to tune into that, and we thank you for joining us again. Thank you, Sharia.
Thank you.
And again, to the royal couple.
To the royal. She won.